And I look up and I look over at what she's watching, and there's a sex scene on the
Yeah.
tablet. And I'm like, "Oh, she's just watching that on an airplane, totally fine."
No
Uh,
headphones, speaker all the way up.
they're cranking it. And, I asked her about it. She's like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that." Hello and welcome to another episode of the Screened In podcast, where we watch everything that's on our screens. That includes TV, movies, anime, video games. You name it, if it's on a screen, we are probably talking about it. Today, on this episode of the Screened In podcast, being a nosy white girl has never felt so exciting. We watch multiple murder shows. A high school acquaintance of ours beats us to the handsome and famous punch, but it ends with us, and a 9-year-old genius is the only thing that isn't bigger in Texas on this episode of the Screened In podcast. My name is Mike Berger. This is my co-host, esteemed, like broccoli co-host, John Artbeer. Welcome, John.
How's it going? Back to one of my favorite intros there, Berger.
Gotta
But
go back to a classic after we haven't recorded in a little bit.
yeah, it's been a little while, and I named this session just like hodgepodge because we're just. But you did touch on we really had murder on the mind because half of these deal with murder or like close to it.
I think John's prepping for Halloween, and that's why.
Yeah, I just watched a scary movie, but
Jeez.
that's before like I just feel like before we talk about specifics, this is the first time in a long time I'm like overwhelmed when I go look at like my streaming options. I feel like there's so many good movies that either are like streaming normally or that you can rent. There's just so many good options right now. So we have a lot of good topics to pick from coming up.
Oh man, I feel like maybe, but I think everybody kind of goes through phases with what they're watching, especially nowadays with so many options, like you just said. And like for one person right now, it seems like there could be a plethora of options, and for another person, maybe they're just kind of like watching like whatever.
Yeah.
So
They're
I think
watching One Piece for the fourth time.
it sounds like right now though you're in a renaissance era for yourself in TV watching, huh, John?
Yeah, I mean, we just the other day we watched 3 movies in one day, which is unheard
Oh
of.
my, that
Yeah,
is a lot.
it was crazy. But
I haven't done
there's
that since like watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy for like a marathon.
I wish I did that as a marathon. But just to rattle off a few, there's the Instigators. Twisters is going to be coming to streaming very shortly.
Ooh.
Quiet Place Day 1, Kingdom of Planet of the Apes, The Bike Riders, Fall Guy is on there. A movie with Aquafina and John Cena just
I
dropped
saw
today
that.
called Jackpot. Um, well, I know you've probably already watched it, but the Rebel Moon director's cut, you probably went back and watched that. That Civil
Yeah,
War
for sure.
movie. There's just so many
Oh yeah.
they might not all be winners, but they all are movies that are on my list to go watch. Even
think
shows too.
I think you can rent it's not Minions. What is the original IP?
Despicable Me.
Yeah. Isn't
Oh, that's
Despicable
out now
Me
too?
3? I think Despicable Me 3 is now available to rent.
There's the 4th one. That's the one that just came out.
Oh,
You're
that's
one
the one.
behind.
Yeah,
There's a new
no, I think
SpongeBob
I've
movie.
seen the 3rd. I'm just
I actually don't know
not
if I've seen the
remembering.
3rd. But yeah, one of the shows right now that is kind of at the top of the lists, at least on Netflix, is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder,
I
which
like how you didn't I didn't expect that to be a tongue twister, but it kinda
I
is.
for some reason, since we've hit the record button, Berger, I've been panicked about saying it. I just feel like I'm gonna mess it up.
It's
But
also the most classic name to this kind of show, like, I'm surprised this name hasn't been taken yet. It's so many, like, buzzwords in a row
yeah,
that I'm like, "How hasn't this show been made already?"
it's definitely a title where I like, it's not one that I would stop on immediately and be like, "That show's for me." That's what I'm like,
Yeah,
"I'm
oh,
gonna
for
watch
sure.
that."
I'd be like, "Well, Sabrina will watch that." But yeah, you said you were gonna watch it, or you all had already watched it when we said, "What are we gonna do next week on the show?" And then I saw it pop up on Netflix, and me and Sabrina had just recently, like, kinda gone through a couple different shows, and we're looking for something new. So, that was there, and we are just about to watch the very last episode of this season. So,
Okay.
and it has gotten very good. I gotta say, this show, like, there was something surprising about this show. We're just gonna dive right into it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, the cinematography in this show is pretty good. Like, I didn't expect that from the show. Like, there's shots where it's a close up of her and the background is blurred, but you see something move, or there's a zoom in on a particular like tree after you hear a sound, and it like builds the tension really well. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty good there. I didn't director seems to know what he's doing.
Yeah, I agree, like, this show just overall, the quality of it, especially for I guess this just happens more now, but for a show that wasn't hyped at all, like, I didn't know
Mhm.
about it until I just saw it on Netflix.
Yeah,
But, yeah, overall, this is as good as any other, like, top tier show out there, and
definitely.
I love I don't know how I would describe shows like this because it's like, it has it as a mystery thriller crime. It's like, murder mystery kind of a show, but it is a little bit lighter. Like, it's not like a teen show or anything like that.
It's definitely not a
Yeah,
teen
I don't know how to describe. Like, there it's not too
show.
heavy. Maybe because it's just because the main characters are, like, teenagers. It just gives it that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, it's
I
very
think
I mean, like, I think they do a good job of showing them in high school, like, but it's very serious for high school. So it's like high school setting, very, very serious because they're never
yeah.
like never just like kind of having fun.
Yeah, well,
They're
she's,
they're
like
always like dealing with some shit.
she's doing her entrance exam and everything for Cambridge, so, like, she's insanely smart,
Yeah,
and, it's our main character is Emma Myers, who was, I knew her as Wednesday's roommate from,
same.
that show, but, yeah, it plays the have you guys been walking around your house yelling out "Pippa" to each other?
Okay, so I said that it's like her name keeps reminding me of Peppa Pig,
Yep.
and she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "You don't find that name to be like really funny?" Like it's just I was just like, I don't know. I've never heard it so many times in a row
Oh,
before.
yeah,
Oh,
the amount of times
the other one that you might not have realized, John, uh, she is in Family Switch,
really?
the movie with Ed Helms and Jennifer Garner that we
Oh,
did on this
yeah.
podcast with
I
the
forgot
incredibly
about that.
cringe moment of, like, brother and sister kissing.
Ugh,
That was in that movie, but,
I
um
forgot about that movie, if I'm honest.
freaking weird. But yeah, she was in that.
Interesting. It seems like
I mean,
she's
she did
getting
a
more
good job
work.
in that. She did a good job in that. There's not
Yeah.
absolutely nothing bad to
The
say.
only negative to her performance, which really isn't her fault, like, she kinda has, like, a love interest in this or,
Mhm.
like, the guy who she's around. To me, I'm like, she looks 12 compared to everyone else. I'm like, she could pass
Ye
for a middle schooler.
She does look younger than everybody else,
It
doesn't she?
just
Yeah.
we kept being like, "Ew, this is weird. He looks like he's
Yeah.
24 years old, and she looks
Yeah,
like
well,
she's 10."
especially when you put her next to, like, Henry Ashton, which is playing Max Hastings, the rich white boy.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
when he comes out
exactly.
of the shower, I'm just like, "Dude, this guy is, like, gotta be 25, 30 years old." And I look at her and I'm like, "This feels weird." She definitely feels and I think if you look up all the ages, I'm willing to bet that, Emma Myers is probably closer in age to all of the people who are representing these high schoolers than we would
Mhm.
think. It's just
Yeah.
that she looks more like a high schooler than everybody else does.
Yeah, oh, man, she was born in 2002, so she's 22.
Okay.
So, I mean, like I said, she could easily she could play a high schooler for the next 10 years probably, but,
Probably. Yeah.
I'm glad you're liking it because I didn't know anything about it. I put it
I'm
on
excited.
and I kinda was like, it was a book, and I think it was kind
I saw
of,
that. Yeah.
and I was for some reason, I went in thinking it was gonna be like a teen show, and, I was pleasantly surprised. Like, first episode in, I was like, "Oh, no, this is a normal show." Like, it's not, super crazy heavy. I don't know. Like, it's not a comedy. I'm not saying that, but yeah, I really liked the vibe of it overall, and we powered through this within like a few days.
Yeah, I think this is a wide-reaching audience that will enjoy this show because it's like, there's tense moments, and it's really funny because Sabrina's even more of a wimp than I am,
Mm.
but she was watching this and she was like, "This is right on the edge of the amount of, like, scariness that I can take," which is
Yeah,
barely anything, but what that means is that, like, this is gonna reach a wide-reaching audience. There's no blood or gore, like but there's
yeah.
enough there to make you feel the intensity, like,
There's a little
uh
bit of blood, but there's never
yeah,
like gore in this.
there's a lot of tension though, like, there was one moment that kinda, like, stood out in my mind when, like, you think that someone is outside watching her because she gets a text message that says, "Nice PJs,"
Yeah.
and she kinda, like, walks outside and she's, like, pretty ballsy, honestly, and she's like,
I thought the
"I
same thing. I'm like,
I'm
if
right
I'm next
here."
to a window and someone
Yeah.
texts me nice PJs,
Yeah.
the last place I'm going is outside.
I know,
Like,
I know.
she's just like, "Who's out here? What's going
Yeah,
on out
yeah,
here?"
yeah.
I'm like, "What are you doing? This is
She was she was
if
like,
it's who
"I'm
you
right
think it is, it's
here."
a murderer."
Yeah, I was really, it was really funny, um, but there's, like it seems there's a couple different twists at the near the end. I have 1 episode to go, John's watched the
Yeah,
whole thing.
so not gonna give
So
you any spoilers.
yeah, but,
Um,
there's a good story here. I like it. If you're thinking at all that this is a comedy, that's one I have to say there's really not any of that in
no,
here. 'Cause
there's none really.
there was something that was telling me sometimes Netflix can really throw you because it makes you watch a scene instead of a trailer. So when you hover over something, you're gonna get a scene from the show. And the scene from the show is probably the most goofiest outfits that they wear on the show, and I was like, "Oh, this is probably, like, some murder comedy thing."
Mhm.
And, it wasn't that at all.
No, and, I mean, just to sell you on it, I just have the blurb up of what the story is,
Go for it.
and this girl's name is Pip Fitzamobi, a brilliant woman is unsure whether schoolgirl that seems weird to call the girl who was murdered a schoolgirl, but her a woman. I feel like she
Yeah.
was younger than the girl that got killed.
Yes, 100%.
But anyway, a brilliant woman who is unsure whether schoolgirl Andy Bell was killed by her lover Sal Singh 5 years ago. They must see how far they will go to protect Pip from learning the truth if Sal Singh turns out not to be the murderer. Doesn't seem to make sense that, but anywho, someone from her school got murdered. They thought it was the boyfriend. They never found her body, and the boyfriend, like, I think, died or something. He disappeared. So everyone's just assumed he did it. He killed her. They must have had some sort of fight or something. Who knows? And the whole thing of the show is she's like, no, I want to find out what actually happened. And so it's really neat. Like you said, there's twists and turns along the way. Um, I had never read the book, didn't know it was a book, but I think it's pretty popular.
Yeah, let's. I mean, I want to know about this other murder show that you watched recently. Let's keep the murder
Oh
going,
yeah.
baby.
Uh yeah, I think that's a good idea to kind of keep it moving. Um the other one I'd been hearing a lot about, and this one's on Apple TV, is Presumed Innocent with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, okay. I have a funny story about this one.
Oh boy. All right. Well, just sit here. We'll start out with the blurb just to start. But a horrific murder upends the Chicago prosecuting attorney's office when one of its own is suspected of the crime, leaving the accused fighting to keep his family together. I I will say this has lived up to the hype so far. Like I had a couple people at work or say that they really loved it, and then a few other, like I think a couple other people have said like it's been really good. And we're only 2 episodes in. I don't wanna say much because Kelsey didn't see any trailer or read up anything about it, and even the ending of the first episode was kind of a twist. Like, we thought it was setting up one way, and it kinda went a different way. So, yeah, it's really good. This one's kind of, more of a heavy, drama, kind of very stressful, like, the
Mm,
whole situation, and this one I'm really liking so far. Like this is like you have to be in the mood for a show like this. It's a
yeah.
serious, heavy show. But we put
Heavy
on the
drama.
first yeah, we put on the first 2 episodes last night. Great so far. I would definitely recommend this one if you're looking for this one. I mean, I would say you know how you said like Good Girl's Guide to Murder was like right at that step. This one goes a step above that. Like
Mm,
it's not gruesome, but they do
yeah,
show more violence or, like, what happened and things like that, so it's but I really like it so far. I'd really recommend this one. Love Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know, I always love to see him and stuff, but
yeah,
I'd recommend this one.
totally. I've only watched about 5 seconds of this
Yeah, you
show.
said you had a funny story about it?
Yeah, I was on the way to New Orleans for a
Okay.
family, vacation, and my mother-in-law is sitting across the row on the airplane from me, but 1 seat in front, right?
Okay.
So, I can see what she's watching on her iPad, and I'm, like, reading, and I'm kinda, like, doing my own thing, and I look up, and I look over at what she's watching, and there's a sex scene on the
Yeah.
tablet. And I'm like, "Oh, she's just watching that on an airplane, totally fine."
No
Uh,
headphones, speaker all the way up.
they're cranking it. And, I asked her about it. She's like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that."
I
So,
am so self-conscious of that.
was so enthralled with Jake Gyllenhaal's performance that she really did not care.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
so that is so funny. Uh,
There's a lot
Great
too
though. It's great.
in the first, like, episode or 2, they show, like, a decent amount of some hot and heavy scenes, so
Oh,
that's hysterical, though.
the intimacy coordinator in this show he's got work to do.
Yeah, they were working
he's there
overtime that
every
first
day.
episode. Ugh, that's funny, though. That's so funny you bring that up because, like, whenever I get on a plane, I mean, now a lot of them have the screen right in the seat, which is even more visible for everyone behind you. So, I'm always like, "Oh, that movie seems good." Do I wanna be the one watching a rated R movie though? Like, sitting here, like,
Yeah.
are there kids around me? I don't know.
Yeah, but the funny part is, like, it's there.
Yeah,
Like,
the
it's
plane co
there
like
to rent.
yeah.
Like, it's kinda funny because it's kinda, like, begging you to do it because it's like, "Hey, visually, nobody else is gonna be watching this is are you kidding? Anybody could watch what I'm watching right now."
Yeah.
It's just so funny. I don't know what the rules are, but it's hilarious to me.
Yeah, I think I watched what was the movie? Is it Split, I think? I think that was one of the last one and, like, that one gets pretty, like, violent and, like,
Yeah.
I think oddly sexual at times, and I'm like, "Oh, man, who put this on? Oh, man."
The guy
Like,
next to me
"Oh."
was playing with my thing while I was
Yeah,
asleep,
I just
so,
got back from the bathroom and this was on. I don't know how to take
yeah,
it.
it's really weird, but
Oh, man. Are you watching any other murder-related items?
Oh, I kinda did, actually.
Okay.
I finally got my hands on, Bullet Train
Oh,
and
okay.
got to watch that movie and really, really enjoyed it, and it's one of those movies where it's, like, it's still cementing, and I really think we just need to, as, like, generally, as a culture, just kinda, like, figure out to get away from movie ratings and TV show ratings. I don't know how we do it or what if there is a better way, but
Okay.
like Bullet Train was one of those where it was like I was so excited. I watched the trailer and I'd be like, wow, that looks really good. And then like all of these ratings came out and it was like really not that great. It's really not that good. Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, fine, I won't watch it. But then it came on Hulu, available for Hulu. I was like, oh, I can watch it for free. I mean, I subscribe to Hulu, but I'm watching the
Mm,
movie, without having to pay for it. So great.
yeah. Boy
So
math.
yeah, 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 exactly. Boy math is exactly right. That's exactly boy math, 100%. So in Bullet Train, Brad Pitt stars as Ladybug, an unlucky assassin determined to do his job peacefully after one too many gigs have gone off the rails. So this whole thing is set on one of those Japanese that in Japan bullet trains, and it's going very, very, very quickly. And there's a lot of assassins on this bullet train, and you're kind of getting piece by piece like a history of like what's happened. But I actually found Brad Pitt to be very, very funny in this movie, and his whole like shtick about being like an incredibly good assassin, but also like in therapy at the same time. Like he is like struggling, like he is struggling to make sense logically with what he does and still uses a lot of as someone who's in mental health. It's very funny to me to hear someone who kills people for a living use therapists speak and like mental health talk. And like when he's saying to like another assassin, like, you've got a lot of stuff to work out, buddy. Like after he like the guy's trying to punch him or the guy gets really angry or whatever. Um and the like stories and all of like the shtick characters, it finds itself it's not at any of these levels, but it reminds me of like the shtick of like Kill Bill kind of.
Okay.
And like you kind of compare it to something like that where it's like super violent, super bloody, but then also has some like is very lighthearted. So it's playing with these like contrast and tempos really. Like there's another assassin that's like really a, she's a very young girl, but in like she wears all pink and
Mm,
bedazzles her gun, but like nobody expects her because she looks the way she looks, so nobody knows that she's an assassin. She's like, "Oh, I'm just a little lost girl," and she like plays that up. So there's a lot of comedy in it. I think there's a lot of very good action scenes. But if you look at the tomato meter, it's going to tell you 53%. If you look at the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's 76%, so a lot higher.
yeah.
But I recommend it to anybody, especially if you have a Hulu subscription going on right now. Get your money's worth. See that movie. It's fun. It's a good time.
That's one that's been on my list for a long time. I actually watched, like, the first bit of it, like, I think I started it with Kelsey when I was still trying to,
Mhm,
like, figure out what our like, movie tastes were,
mhm.
like, to watch together, and, like, we watched part of it, and then I was waiting for, like, to watch the rest with her, and then she's like, "You could probably watch that one without me." So, like, I for some reason, I've never gone back, but I really enjoyed the first, like, bit of it, so
Yeah.
I think I'd rather go back and kinda watch the whole thing because, like you said, you get bits of the story. I think if I were to jump in now, I would be out of the loop,
Oh, yeah, you probably have
but
to play it from the beginning, but I mean, there's a rating here that I think it is very fair when someone said like, you know how they clip some of the reviews? It says,
mhm.
"It could have been more entertaining, but if you're in a mood for a really decent thriller to pass the time, Bullet Train will get you where you need to go." And I think that's a very fair review of Bullet Train, but it also hits on a couple different niche things that I enjoy. So maybe I like it more than the average person would. Because I put this movie in like B territory for
Yeah.
myself.
I think, from, like, the limited amount I saw it, I would put it the same kinda thing. I really enjoyed it. This just like, you brought this up the other day when we talked, and that it literally, like, sparked in my brain. I was like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "That's what I need to watch." Like, whenever I'm trying to just think of a movie to put on, I'm like, "I'll just watch that."
Yeah,
I need to have, like, a physical list of these things.
for sure. Also, too, on Hulu, I believe I believe all of the Planet of the Apes movies are on Hulu right
Okay.
now, if I'm not mistaken, including like the previous ones. So I saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes in theaters.
You
Um,
did?
yeah, and it was, I believe I did. It's hard to remember life sometimes. I'm pretty sure I did though. Um, saw something in theaters. I definitely saw it. Let me put it that way. And it was very good. It was a very good movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and it made me go back and watch the other Planet of the Apes movies, starting with the James Franco one. So we're
Okay.
talking about like the newer series.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't go back to like the 80s or the 70s or anything, but I started with the James Franco movie and like watched the other ones up until Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Um, and you know what? That's a better movie series than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah, I kinda wanna do the same thing because that new one looked really good, but I think I saw the original oh, no, I'm doing the same thing, not the original, like, the newer set. I think I watched, like,
Yeah.
the first one, and I never really went back to the others, so I should really give those another shot. Um,
Oh, I think you'll enjoy.
but this
I
new
think
one
you'll
is
enjoy
set
watching this.
in a different time period, like, you don't need to go watch those before you watch the new one, right?
No, 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 no,
Okay.
no. I got because I didn't review the previous ones before watching the newer one, and I watched the newer one, not kind of really remembering too much about the previous ones. It does mention a little bit about the past, and having that context is helpful, but by no means is that required viewing to
Okay.
go into this movie. In fact, I like the idea if you wanna do that, I like the idea I'd recommend the idea of seeing the new one and then going back, and that will give you context as to what went on in the past.
Okay. Then kinda in the same vein, like, Planet of the Apes is a pretty iconic series. I saw the trailer recently for Alien Romulus.
Okay, so
I wanna go see that in
I kinda
theaters.
do too, but it's not because of the trailer, it's because whoever's doing the marketing for Alien Romulus is insane,
Oh
because
god.
they got people all over New York City laying like, hanging out of cabs in the subways with these alien things on their faces,
Oh.
and the alien things have, like, a kinda like a heartbeat motion. So
Oh,
people
that's
and they're
crazy.
filming people on the street that are looking at the other people and, like, their reactions to it.
Oh,
So
wow.
they New York sometimes New York City marketing is just out there, like it's a
Yeah.
different planet.
The only thing I'd see is they had, like, those scorpion looking things, I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
Like, they had, like, an RC one going around at, like, the big theater, I guess that's probably in, like, Times Square or something.
Okay.
But, I had only seen that, I didn't see the stuff with the people. That's really interesting.
Like, oh man, they're going hard. Yeah, it looks super interesting. And to be honest with you, the jump scare movies I have a hard time with, but I've been going more horror lately, John.
Yeah.
I've been listening to the It audiobook and by Stephen King, and I've been enjoying that. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with me. Maybe as I get older, I'm like, I can take this. I don't know.
Yeah, I like horror movies like that, like, but one of my biggest cinema sins is that I've never seen any of the Alien movies. And so I know,
Wow.
they've been on my list for so long, and I, for some reason, have never watched them, but
Is this something we need to do together on this podcast, is go through the Alien movies?
I would love to.
Because I think that's true for both of us. As
Oh,
far as I
really?
can remember, I've never watched any of these. So
Oh.
maybe that's something we need to do for the podcast. I don't know.
I would love to do that, like, maybe
That
not
sounds like
do an
fun.
episode per movie, but, like, just do a bunch and then report
Yeah,
back. I would,
100%.
'cause I really wanna see that new one. It looked like I watched that trailer and I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing."
Looked good. I mean, the last one, people liked the last one. It had, what is his name? Um,
Is it the one with John C. Reilly? Or is that
yes.
Predator?
Okay,
I get those mixed up.
there's one with John C. Reilly, I thought, and one with the guy from Righteous Gemstones. What is his name?
Oh,
Hold on. This is one of those.
Max
Danny
again?
McBride. I
Oh,
think who
okay.
you're thinking of is Danny McBride, because I'm pretty sure Danny McBride was in one of the last Alien movies.
It probably. Um, but I saw this trailer because I was at the movies recently to see a movie that was not my normal cup of tea, but I went to see it because, as you teased earlier, um, someone we went to high school with, Mr. Brandon Sklenar, he was actually in my grade. He was my neighbor for a little bit. And he was one of, like, the main characters in this movie. I would say, like, he's, like, between 3rd and 5th build overall, and, it's starring Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, which is one of my favorite names to now say, but it's called It Ends With Us, and it's funny because I had never heard of these. It's based on a book. I had never heard of this book before. I don't think I've told this story on the podcast, but I had found out Brandon was actually on the show 1923, which is a prequel to Yellowstone, which I guess he's a big character on that show. But I had learned about I was like, wow, he's actually being, like, he pretty successful. So I was looking at his IMDb page and I was like, just talking to Kelsey, and I'm like, oh yeah, like he's gonna be in an upcoming movie called It Ends With Us as what's his name? Like Axel or something like that. And Kelsey's in the other room. She's like, "What?" She's like, "That's the book I'm reading, like, right now. Like, it's in my hands." I'm like, "That's weird." And she's like, "Who did you say he was playing?" And, uh, I said that, or not Axel, Atlas. Sorry. I was like, "Oh, he's playing, like, Atlas Corrigan?" And, like, she's like, "Wait, that's, like, the main guy." So I was like, "Oh, wow." I was like, "Holy shit." So I wanted to go because I'm like, "That's super interesting to me." Like, it's neat to see someone from, like, my grade at the movies, like, not just in the background or something, so I'm like, "Oh, this is super cool." Movie actually turned out to be better than I thought it would be.
Okay.
Um, so it's called It Ends With Us. It's a Colleen Hoover book. Now, I don't really follow her or anything like that. I think she kinda makes there are books that seem more geared towards women in a sense, like that category. But I went on Goodreads and it has like 3.6 million ratings. Like it's a huge book. It's very popular. And it kind of is in the category of like a drama romance kind of movie. It touches on some like domestic violence kind of things. Some of let me read you the character
Oh,
names.
you
But go
said
ahead.
there's drama around this too,
Oh,
right?
I'm
And
about
I
to get to
think
it.
I know a little bit about some of that drama, and I think that when you sent me a reel about this movie, Instagram said, "Oh, you like that movie?
Yep, me
I
too.
got a I got a few reels for you, buddy." And then I learned some things about this movie that I really didn't need to know, but I'm so ready to talk about it.
Oh, before we do that, before we get
Okay.
because we get a
Okay.
little more serious, the 3 main characters, the main character, her name is Lily Blossom Bloom. Can you guess what her occupation is?
She's a florist.
She's a florist. And it's like, they
Okay, so
joke about
far
it
this is giving Lifetime vibes.
kind of, yes. I think in
Okay.
another lifetime, 20 years ago, it could have been a Lifetime movie.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't that's, like, the perfect explanation. Um, Brandon, he played the character Atlas Corrigan, another classic. And then, her other love interest? Oh, that's just Ryle Kincaid. Oh,
What
oh,
are
whoa.
these names?
Me? I'm Ryle Kincaid. But,
These names are
oh,
absolutely hilarious.
it's oof. But to get to the drama, um, it's very interesting to me because I had no idea what this movie was going into it. And as the movie got closer to releasing, I saw it pop up more on like Reddit and Instagram. Like you said, I started getting tons of reels, and it was all marketing for it, a lot with Brandon and Blake Lively.
Yeah,
Um, and they were doing like all this stuff that kind of made it seem like like it was going to be a romance movie.
right,
Like,
right.
and then I sent you a reel where Brandon is getting interviewed, and it's like the interview's ending, and then Ryan Reynolds comes in, who's Blake Lively's husband in real life, and then Hugh Jackman comes in, and like Ryan
Yes.
Reynolds' mom, and it's this big jokey interview
Yup,
trying to tie it into Deadpool and Wolverine.
yup.
A lot of people are kind of accusing like Blake Lively and him of trying to make a Barbenheimer kind of release. And so a lot of people initially are kinda like, "Okay, like, oh my god, we get it, like, we're over this," like and I didn't know this, like, people seem to already have, like, kind of an opinion on Blake Lively, like, she maybe tries to be like, get attention or something maybe. I don't know about that, whatever. But I think where the drama is kinda coming in is Justin Baldoni, who is Ryle Kincaid. He he's also the director.
Mhm.
And he wanted to do this movie. I think I saw a reel of him saying like, "I wanted to make this movie so that if there was a Lily Bloom in the audience and this looked familiar, maybe it would give her kind of the push to leave the situation she's
Right,
in, not to put up with, you know, domestic violence issues and things like that. Like, give her the courage to leave." And he kinda made it seem like that's why I made the movie. Uh, Others might not be on the same page, and then he got asked like, "Oh, like, the second one's gonna be, like, exciting. Are you ready for that?" And he kinda was like, "I think there's other people to handle that one." And he's like, "I think Blake is." is ready to direct or something like that. So it definitely seems like it's a split cast. Like he made this movie to be kind of serious and to kind of be like, hey, let's shed a light on these domestic issues.
Right.
Let's, you know, give it a real feel to it, bring awareness to things, while Blake Lively and them are kind of making it like, come see this, sappy romantic movie where, who knows what happens and it's all, fun and games. And so it's really got the internet up in a tizzy right now.
Yeah.
And all I can think about as I'm watching it, it's like I definitely understand where that Justin Baldoni's coming from. And then I'm like, I wonder if this is good or bad for Brandon. Like, he's kinda getting lost in the shuffle.
He's
But I'm
getting
like,
lost
this
in the sauce, yeah.
but this movie, I mean, reviewers gave it a 56 on Rotten Tomatoes, which not great. The
Yeah.
audience score is a 93. Like, people love the movie.
I'm
It's
sorry, what?
shocked you.
93?
But, I mean, that's a very, niche movie, so don't need to talk about it long. But one last note about Brandon Sklenar.
Okay, okay, okay.
I had seen also, I have to make a note, the casting for young Blake Lively in this movie,
Yeah.
pretty dead on. The casting for young Brandon Sklenar, having known Brandon Sklenar,
Ah.
ooh, not good. It did not look like him. But I had looked up because when I started to find out about him and having like that he had this show and everything, he was actually like an established actor. I did what any chronically online person does and searched Brandon Sklenar Reddit to see if anyone had talked about him on Reddit or anything. And one of the threads that came up that didn't have a ton of traction or anything was somebody kind of inferring that Brandon would make a good next Batman in the DCU. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Okay. Ha ha ha." Well, I don't know why, but after this movie came out, I decided to search that again, and I noticed now there was threads where I guess Brandon had reposted some fan art that someone made of him as Batman. And I was like, "Oh, wow, like these actually have like 50 upvotes." Like, like it's not like a big popular opinion, but people are kind of talking.
Sure.
So then I just searched on Google, uh, like upcoming what are the best casting options for the next Batman? And I see there's a top 10 list, and I'm like, okay, like the top guys are like Aaron or Alan Richardson and like Jake Gyllenhaal are at the top of the article, and it's like John Krasinski's number 9, and I'm like, oh, okay, like he's not. I'm like, he's not going to be on a list with guys like this. Oh, Aaron Taylor Johnson from Bullet Train is on it. And then Glenn Powell is number 5. Do you wanna guess who number 4 is on the Screen Rant top 10 list for next Batman casting?
Brendan Sklenar.
Oh, how did you know? But
Oh,
I but I'm like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "I've heard of Screen Rant before." Like, they make a whole bunch of movie stuff, and I'm like, "Wow, I guess."
yeah.
And now I'm like, "This is gonna be insane if someone we went to high school with turns out to be
Oh,
the
yeah,
next
for sure.
Batman." Like, that's super cool to me. But
I like
I'm
when,
sure.
I like when, like, fringe actors who are, like, up and coming get one of those roles because
Mhm.
then you get, like, as opposed to, like, being like, "Oh, that's so and so," playing Batman. It's like when someone is newer comes up and, like, plays one of those roles and, like, really sticks into it, then you just, like, see that person as like, "Oh, yeah, he," like, you see him as Batman because you don't have
Yeah,
this preconceived notion of anything else that they've done. You know what I mean? So I
exactly,
kinda
yeah.
like that's kinda
Like
cool to me.
like Jake Gyllenhaal on this list. Like that would ruin it because you'd just be looking at it going, "That's Jake Gyllenhaal. That's
Yeah,
not Batman."
100%. The whole time you're just looking at him and you're like, "That's Jake Gyllenhaal." Also, isn't Jake Gyllenhaal like my height? Isn't he like 5'7"? He's too small to be
Oh, I don't
Batman.
know. Yeah, he's definitely a thinner guy. Like I feel like Batman, well, at least recently with like Ben Affleck, they did go back to Robert Pattinson, who's a pretty thin,
Yeah,
gangly kind of guy.
but Robert Pattinson is like, as far as I know, I think he's like 6 foot at least.
I think he's pretty tall.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I mean that's my Brandon Sklenar corner. I'm sure Kelsey's rolling her eyes about me talking about my newest man crush of Brandon Sklenar. But
You can't say that, John. You know him. It's possible. Did you put him on
yeah,
your list? Like, oh, one of those celebrities. He's on my
yeah.
list.
Joe, you just wrote his name 10 times. What? No, I just think it's super neat.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool seeing people we know. And then actually totally weird side note to how to end the podcast. It's very weird because I forget his last name. I think it might this guy Grant Ellis, I think his name is, uh, went to school possibly with Kelsey, and, like, I think he went to a different high school or something, but, like, same thing, a local kid is on this season of The Bachelorette, and he's one of the contestants. Well, they announced the new Bachelor for next year, and he's the Bachelor, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" I'm like, you got Brandon Sklenar over here, you got
What is
Grant over
going
here.
on?
Northwest New Jersey's really blowing up.
What is going on? That's
Yeah,
wild, man.
yeah. But, anything else you wanna talk about, or I know this episode was
I
a little
put
bit.
this in the intro, so I'm literally just gonna say it right now.
Oh,
Netflix has Young Sheldon on it, and
ugh,
I used to watch Big Bang religiously, so I'm going through all the seasons of Young Sheldon. I like the shows that are like family comedy shows.
mhm.
They don't do them as much anymore. Like, I'm a huge Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan. I love, um, Superstore was really funny. I loved watching that. I loved those like 20 episode Community, 20 episode comedies a season, oh god, those are I love those.
Oh, boy.
Um, so I know that Young Sheldon's part of that. Oh, am I not doing so
I don't know,
hot
you got
here?
jittery, but it might be fine. Yeah, it might be alright. Sometimes the
Okay.
recordings are fine. But on that note,
So
maybe we'll wrap it up just in case.
yeah, yep.
But,
I'm watching that. Anyway,
yeah, no, you're
um,
not the first person that I've heard recently is watching Young Sheldon and
yeah,
liking it, and I thought it was like a joke show that got, like, torn apart. But, yeah, you're not the first person to be like, "No, I'm watching it, it's actually pretty good." So now I'm like, "Do I
six
have to go watch Young
six
Sheldon?"
seasons, like 20 episodes a season. I mean, that's gonna fill your time if you want a
Yeah,
comedy. It's pretty good. So that's been it for another episode of the Screened In podcast. Um, we love doing this. I'm happy
yeah,
to record with John again because we love talking about all this kind of stuff. Um, and please reach out to us. Let us know if you watch any of these, if you took any of our suggestions, or you have a different opinion than us. Reach out to us on social media, or obviously on YouTube where this is posted, on Instagram as well. And we also have a Discord if you want to message us on Instagram to get on that Discord. But it's been nice discussing these with you, John. And adios, everybody.